This bonus episode of the Jurassic Park Podcast contains no spoilers for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. It is a general reactions podcast only. You'll hear my thoughts, feelings, and concerns with Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I am very excited to have finally seen this movie, but I will not be spoiling it for anybody who has not seen it. If you haven't seen it, feel free to skip it and wait until you have. But remember, there are no spoilers here.
Run! Run!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jurassic Park Podcast. I am your host, Brad Jost, and I am here today with a bonus episode to give you a little bit of information about a movie that I went to go see unexpectedly, thanks to Chris Pugh at Jurassic Outpost and Jennifer Tarek for kind of arranging this all to make it all happen. And I keep saying on the podcast that I just didn't know when I would be able to make it out to the movie. That was all true at the time, but stunningly, I was able to go last minute here, so that was very awesome, and saw it at a press screening ahead of time, so I have some thoughts, and it is safe, guys. Don't worry, don't turn it off just yet. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just going to give you brief summaries and kind of feelings and thoughts, just a reaction to what I saw, and as I'm recording this, it's just about a day after getting out of the movie theater. So I've had this full past day to kind of think about it and to collect my thoughts because I had to. It was very tough. One of the funny things that I found about the night was the three of us were sitting in the theater and the movie stopped and their credits were rolling, granted. So we were just being respectful and listening to the music and waiting, but we didn't say anything to each other. We kind of just sat there in the moment, like this is it. This is the last bit of the first time that we're going to see this movie. The last time the credits will roll for the first time. I know, confusing, but we sat in silence, and I found that very interesting. So it's been a full day of collecting my thoughts, thinking about that movie, what it all means, and there's a lot, guys. There is a lot to think about, and I cannot wait for that conversation, especially for the July mailbag, which me and Jen will be discussing in full. Anything you guys call in about, it's going to be absolutely wild. But let's start off with the movie. So I do want to say that even though we sat there without anything to say to each other, I had a blast. I really loved everything I saw on screen. I was sitting there, and I don't know if I was getting weird looks at times. My mouth was just wide open. I found myself cheering. I was laughing quite a bit. Now, when I'm in the movies and I just get giddy and excited, and I start laughing like a child at all the amazing moments and the fun stuff from the movie. I was basically on the edge of my seat the entire time, just thrilled, in awe, and it was a giant spectacle of a movie. Even at some points had like near tears in my eyes. So it was just a feast, and I had a great time with everything that I saw there, and still, I'm still processing everything, but I know for a fact I enjoyed everything, and I thought it was a blast. The movie was visually stunning. So I think you can kind of expect that from J.A. Bayona. And Oscar Fura, he kind of helped out there, obviously, with the cinematography. The two of them used the light and darkness so well. And I think it's been something that maybe the series has been lacking in that terms. Even a lot of Spielberg stuff recently, I feel I haven't felt that connection to the lightness and the darkness that Spielberg used to use in films like Raiders and Jurassic Park and other films like that. So Bayona and Oscar really killed it with the lights and the darks and using them effectively to the scenes that they were showcased. And I can't even talk about what was used and how it was used without spoiling anything, so that's off the table. But I just thought it was all iconic. And there's a lot of visuals in this movie that I think we're going to be talking about for a very long time. I think it's going to be very safe to say that some of the stuff here will be imprinted on our brains. And once the movie's released fully for a while, I'm sure it's going to be on printed material and all kinds of marketing and stuff like that. The set pieces, we've all seen this stuff from the trailers. They're very incredible, very memorable, very different from anything we've seen before in these movies. And I think you can tell that probably by watching the trailers. You can see how different of a movie this is. I really love the introduction of the movie, like the very beginning. You've all heard people, if you've been listening to the podcast or if you've been on Twitter or wherever, you've heard people talking about the beginning of this movie. And it's been previewed several times already. It's incredible. It really is. And I knew exactly what happened in this intro from all the descriptions. I even read the entire description on the podcast a few weeks back. It is very incredible. Even though I knew exactly what was going to happen, it was so much fun, so amazing to see that those words come to life, after I had read it and just see it on screen. It was incredible. And I know a lot of people have been saying the best scene since the first Jurassic Park. I think it effectively evoked a lot of the feelings that we got from like the opening scene of Jurassic Park in a way. And it felt a lot like the novel. It really felt like the novel to me. So that's a good thing, I think. I think a lot of this film took a lot of ties and stuff from the novels, and I think that's great that these novels are still being mined years and years later. I mean, who could have imagined, right? 2 books, 5 films, and you're still taking stuff from them. I don't think they're going to stop anytime soon. So there was, I don't think I mentioned it, but the title card, when Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom came up on screen, it was epic. I loved it. I thought it looked beautiful. It was, I think it was different than anything we've seen previously, in any of these movies. But it was awesome. I thought it was great. Let's go to the acting. I thought they stepped it up. I think they really took it to another level. I really enjoyed a lot of the acting in Jurassic World. I know people could complain about Chris Pratt maybe and some of the others in the movie, but in this movie I felt like everybody took that character, grounded it a little bit better, and just really emoted very well. Like Bryce Dallas Howard, for instance. Her character is vastly different, obviously, you could tell, from Jurassic World. And I thought her use of her facial expressions was impeccable. Like, you could tell a story from everything that was shown on her face. And I think that that's an incredible sign of a great actor. And one of the things that I joked about kind of was that it felt like a serious movie for a while, and then Chris Pratt shows up and it's like, okay, here's the goofball, because a lot of people, took him down a notch in the last movie because his character was goofy and said weird lines and just wasn't believable. But I personally take that as the character, a choice of the character. He's very much a goofball, a weird dude, and he's not the macho man that he kind of presents in Jurassic World. So I think he took that to another level in this movie. I think Daniela Pineda, newcomer here, was a very memorable new character, and a very strong addition, I think, to the franchise. Maisie, who is played by the young new actor Isabella Sermon, she was incredible. Really a great addition. Added to the long line of child actors in the Jurassic franchise. These movies are all about family. They're all about kids and how we see these dinosaurs and these actions through a kid's eyes. And I think that there's no difference here. This movie is a lot of the times through her eyes, so it's interesting to see how basically a completely unknown actor or actress takes on a role in such a big movie and just knocks it out of the park. I thought that was incredible. She did an amazing job. I think she's going to be very employable from here on out. This movie, to its benefits or detraction, I don't know. It had a very mix of different genres. It was a Jurassic movie. It was an action movie. It was a horror movie. It had plenty of drama and a bit of comedy. And overall, there was a lot of brutality. And yes, obviously, Jurassic is built on brutality. And I don't know. I might say it took it a step farther. So, while it's always been a family franchise and a movie for kids, it is very different of a movie, I think, than the other installments. Like I said, that brutality might be even a step farther than we've experienced before. It's like that scene from Jurassic Park where Muldoon gets attacked, but times 10 in a way. So I think that's kind of what I'm getting at there. I did love, speaking of the action scenes in this movie, it was very much an action movie. Along with all those other genres that I mentioned, it was very much all of those things, maybe even the least a Jurassic movie. We'll get to that a little bit later, but I loved the action of this movie. Even at times, if it was a little muddled by so much happening, because, like a lot of popular blockbusters these days, there are so many things going on screen. And I don't think we're going to get away from that anytime soon when it comes to action summer blockbusters like Avengers, like any of those Marvel movies or Star Wars or anything like that. There's going to be a lot of things happening on screen. At times it was a little bit muddled, but I did love a lot of the action in this, and it was a very different action than you're used to for a Jurassic movie, and I thought it really excelled at a lot of that stuff. More action than ever before. So I really, really enjoyed that. Let's talk about the score for a second. Michael Giacchino returned. He did Jurassic World. And in Jurassic World, he did use some of the Jurassic Park themes. And I think he did a little bit of the same here and expanded upon his own themes. So I thought it was a very diverse score. There was a lot of soft stuff. Some stuff that actually quite reminded me of Rogue One. Now, there's the big story that he only did that movie in about, I think, 4 weeks. He scored that movie, which is absolutely incredible. The sign of like a genius, scorer, whatever you call him, composer. So I don't know how long he did. He actually had this. This has been out he's been recording this for a while, so it was ready to go for a while. But he did a brilliant job, I thought, with the new stuff. I thought the new stuff sounded incredible. So that's very good. He very used in impactful ways that I think when I talked about scores ahead of this movie, I kind of said, a lot of times when you see a movie for the first time, the scores are not very impactful on you. They should be used for those moments that kind of underlie a lot of the things. So it doesn't necessarily stand out, but it underlies everything and makes it better. And I think he did that here. I'll talk a little bit more about the score later. And I think lastly here on my essentially good list, I thought the discussion that will be had about this film will be extremely interesting moving forward. The plot will certainly be divisive, but I think it's a needed journey, and I think it's a very interesting journey as far as where we will be after this movie is fully released in all territories, and we can all discuss it. Like I said earlier in the beginning, the Jurassic mailbag this coming month will be so interesting, so of course full of spoilers. But not now. We're still safe. But I think moving forward, there will be a ton of heated discussion. There will be sides taken, and I think it will change a lot of things moving forward. And I'm very interested to see where everybody falls and what will be had of all these discussions moving forward and where the series will be taken. I think that's going to be extremely interesting to find out. So let's move on to some of the bad, I guess, if you want to call it bad. I don't necessarily think any of these bad things impact the movie negatively for me. Now, there's a few things that I say could have been changed, or were should have maybe been done differently. And there's always I feel like you're always going to have theories when movies these days are connecting dots, like Marvel, like Star Wars, and now Jurassic. When these movies are connecting dots, you're always going to have your own theories. And I, of course, had those, but even once a movie's out and done and produced, you're still going to have those theories, and you're going to know better. You always know better, right? Than the directors, than the actors, than the producers. But you have to let it ride. You have to let it. You have to experience the movie as it is, and not critique it based off of your own opinions, I guess, or your own theories or conjecture. So that aside, this movie was very fast paced in a good way. I thought there was very forward motion in this movie, but almost not enough time to breathe. And I thought some of the scenes that I would have liked to have seen expanded were not expanded upon. That's on me. I thought some of the CG wasn't my favorite of the entire series, but this entire thing is hit or miss. Everybody will say nothing touches Jurassic Park. I just watched Jurassic Park again just before this movie, and I hate to break it to you, but it is not the ultimate CG monster that we all talk about. It does have its flaws, and it is certainly aging, I think, after all these years. But I don't care. I love that movie the way it is. I love it for the not perfect CG that it is. And I think this movie could be the same way. There's times where I thought, okay, that's not as polished as I would have liked. But overall, I did love the CG at times. I thought it was phenomenal, spectacular, all those adjectives. But some of the things I had issues with, like I said, not enough to ruin the movie. The characters, I thought, overall, I liked a lot of the characters, and there was some that maybe I was unsure of their motives, and maybe they were kind of one-dimensional characters, but that's okay. Every movie kind of has these things. There are plenty of one-dimensional characters in the past movies that I have no gripes with, so this will be just something that, like I said, I maybe thought this character would have a better story, but it wasn't fleshed out. Maybe it will be in the future for other material. Who knows? As far as those genres that I discussed earlier, I did mention that it feels less Jurassic than maybe any of the movies. Now, these are dinosaur movies, right? So, there are dinosaurs there, but I don't know how to even describe it. I guess because of all the other elements of action, horror, drama, and comedy and all that stuff, it maybe felt less Jurassic. But maybe it was the moving of the action to a different and new territory that felt less Jurassic. I am very excited, though, to see this expansion, and I think it is obviously necessary moving forward because of everything we've seen prior to this. I think there's nowhere else you can go aside from here. So on one hand, the genre feels less Jurassic than ever, but I think it might be necessary. As far as the comedy is concerned, there was a lot of physical comedy that, maybe not a lot, that's harsh, but there was a few moments of physical comedy that didn't necessarily work for me. I think you maybe could have cut them down a tad, and it would have been funny if you had cut some of those things down. But there was a lot of physical comedy and a lot of that stuff that I did like. So I have a hard time critiquing that because it's just a a nitpick, really. I think a lot of these things that I'm mentioning are nitpicks. I could probably nitpick this forever, and since it is a podcast, there will be those moments. But it's fine. Like I said, I loved the movie. I had a blast with it, but certainly with any movie, Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World, they all have nitpicks. The score. Now, like I said, it was very impactful, very diverse score, but I thought the use of the themes, which were great, the new themes were fantastic, but I don't know. This might be something that I need to see multiple times to kind of get an idea, and certainly own the score to get a better idea, to listen to it over and over and over. But the use of themes, I didn't necessarily feel a thematic tie to much of anything. There were new themes that I just didn't know why they were there. And some themes from previous movies that I didn't know why they were being used. John Williams is obviously still a very thematic composer, and he uses his themes, like, say, for instance, in Star Wars, very purposefully. Michael Giacchino does that as well. I don't know that was the case here, but that'll be interesting to see moving forward. I really need time with the score, and I need more time with the movie than one viewing. But that's just a little thing I maybe noticed. I'm not too sure there. And I mentioned earlier the reaction and the discussions that we will be having about how divisive it will be. It worries me. It does worry me. There was one specific moment in the movie where the crowd laughed. A lot of the people in the theater laughed. Not me, not a lot of the hardcore fans and things like that, I'm sure. But there were a few moments, because it was like a critics and a preview screening. There were like one or two moments where people audibly laughed at moments you shouldn't be laughing at. And it got me worried. It got me worried for reviewers and for all that stuff. And I did get a little nervous about how those reactions would take precedence in the media and all that stuff. So it's very interesting. But wrapping up here, I think the last negative aspect, I think, of the movie was the marketing. Now, we know that they spent a whopping $185 million on the budget for their marketing and promos and all that stuff. And while I am so grateful that they promoted this movie more than I've ever seen in recent years for anything, it might have been too much. Now, I won't say much more than that, but I think, the trailers tell the story, and that's really all you need to know. So if you are watching these trailers, if you're watching the content online, the behind the scenes, any of the new stuff, there is still new stuff every day, still constantly. And I would suggest to stop, okay? Stop watching, forget everything you've seen, try to do that, because I think it will equate for a more entertaining journey. But really, those are my reactions to Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Overall, like I said, I had a blast with the movie, and I think over time we'll be critical, but we try to do that with a lot of movies. I know a lot of people on the internet will call me out for being a fanboy because, of course, I run the Jurassic Park podcast. So what else could I be? But I try to be critical when possible. But I try not to be too harsh because I love these things. I love these movies. I love this movie. And I cannot wait to see it more than once to kind of get a better vibe. And typically when I see something the second time, I love it even more. So I'm very excited to see what happens next. I have to wait a few weeks, but I can't wait. So if you guys enjoyed this on our podcast feed or on YouTube, wherever else you found it, visit our website, JurassicParkPodcast.com. Find our articles, find our show notes, find our lovely contributors to the podcast. There's a full page devoted to them. We're constantly updating the website with new material, so check that out. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Google Play, on YouTube, any podcasting app out there. So check out all your podcast feeds out there. And make sure to follow us on Twitter at Jurassic Park Pod, on Instagram at Jurassic Park Podcast. We are on Facebook. We don't use it too much, but we are on there. And we're all over the place. So definitely just check us out. Follow us, like us, subscribe, share, do all those things. And if you do go to iTunes, make sure to leave a review for the podcast. We would greatly appreciate any kind words. 5 stars if you could. We want to get the word out there to all the Jurassic fans who are listening or who want to hear people talk about a franchise that you all love as passionately as you do. So I'm very excited for all the new listeners that are out there over the course of the marketing for this movie and for the release of this movie. Thank you so much for listening and enjoy. Make sure to visit JurassicParkPodcast.com to find all our past episodes, brand new news articles, information on how to contact us, and much more. It's a great source for everything related to the podcast and, of course, Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. Head to JurassicParkPodcast.com and help us build a great community.
Anybody hear that? 5 minutes. Drop what you're doing and leave now.